Don't try that on in brother Nigerians born and proud to serve a sovereign motherland.
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, GCOP, President and Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Your Excellency, Mr. Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu, CON, GCOP, Governor of Lagos State, and Chief Host of this historic evening, ably represented by the Deputy Governor of Lagos State, Dr. to Island Club, the home of legacy, hospitality, and national reflection. As we gather to commemorate Nigeria's 65th independence with this lecture and award night, tonight is not a mere ceremony. It's a convergence of history, responsibility, and awakening. When the Island Club of Nigeria was founded in 1943, colonial exclusion and racial segregation sought to diminish the Nigerian spirit. Our founding fathers, courageous visionaries, built this club as a sanctuary of resistance, a citadel of dialogue, and an incubator of leadership. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I thank you most sincerely for honoring our invitation. It is my privilege as chairman of Island Club and your humble host to welcome you to our evening of history, intellect, and inspiration. Welcome to Island Club since 1943, the home of legacy, hospitality, and hope. May God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Dean, Kabarak University School of Law, a former lecturer at the University of Nairobi, UON, the United States International University, USIU Africa, Widener University, USA, Nairobi Summer School, and Chancellor of the Unity University in Hargeisa. He is widely published and currently consults with Lumumba and Lumumba Associates, a member of the Africa Justice Group, and runs the PLO Lumumba Foundation with presence in 46 African countries. From Nigeria to Kenya, please recognize in our midst Professor Patrick Locke Otieno Lumumba. I did warn you.
Nigerians do best by saying that I stand on the protocols already established. I think it is a clever way of ensuring that I do not annoy anybody by forgetting them, and is a very nice way. But it would be remiss on me if I did not recognize the chairman of Island Club, who invited me to this occasion. Honorable Chairman, accept my gratitude. It is also proper and fitting that I recognize your dear wife, and equally proper and fitting that I recognize our chief host, who is the governor of the state of Lagos, and to recognize the former chairpersons, the trustees, and the distinguished members who are here present, as well as the distinguished discussants. Permit me to congratulate. It is also important to remind ourselves that the time has come when we can no longer afford the luxury of attributing our failures to colonization. We have had occasion to do many things, and indeed it can be said that we have done many things, but there is a sense in which we continue to punch below our weight. We must also remind ourselves that it is true that we are not the only peoples who are colonized. There are others who are colonized, others who we may describe as our colonial age mates, and for some reason they appear to be doing better than us. So on this occasion we must ask ourselves, what is it that we can do better? And the country that must ask that question more than any other country in the continent of Africa is the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The reason why she must do so is because out of every 5 Africans, 1 is a Nigerian. The reason why she must do so is because over 300 million people live within the territory of Nigeria. And I want to submit to Nigeria that the day you do your census properly, you will discover that you are actually 350 million. I look forward to that day when Nigerians will discover their number in this continent. We must also and always remind ourselves that the Africa we are talking about is an Africa that is divided into 54 artificial nations. Some say 55. Some even say 56. Some even say more. But we must remember that as this club was being established in 1943, and the chairman has already said that it was the ground upon which courage was incubated. I want all of you who are present here to remember what the men and women who are assembled here were thinking about. In those days, when not every Nigerian could be allowed in these places. In those days, when Africans were considered to be children of a lesser God. In those days, when the British were quick to remind us that we were different because we were Hausa, because we were Fulani, because we were Yoruba, because we were Igbo, because we are Kalabari, and they were sowing the seeds of discord, that even when we regained our independence, we would not last for too long. We must ask ourselves what was going on in their mind. She's not at ease. Go to Central African Republic, she's not at ease. Go to the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo, she's not at ease. Go to southern Cameroons in Ambazonia, she's not at ease. And even when there is no real war, no real conflict, as I speak to you now, for 4 days and 4 nights in Morocco, young men are in the streets. As I speak to you now, young men and young women are in the streets of Luanda in Angola. I suspect it's about 55. Our young men and women are not present in this assembly. They'll only watch on television. Where is the baton that we are going to pass over to them? Where is the united country that we are going to pass over to them? What are we doing in our health sector? As a young person, when we read about Nigeria, I read about the University of Ibadan, the University of Nigeria at Nsukka. And I remember those days. People would come from the Arab world to be treated at Ibadan. Today, why is it? Last week, there was the United Nations General Assembly. Even when the President of the United States of America was insulting everybody, African leaders sat there. But when their fellow African head of state is talking, they are busy doing other things. Who cast us? Who bewitched us? These are the uncomfortable questions that we must ask here. We have been too nice to each other for too long. The net effect questions. These are the uncomfortable questions that we must ask. And these questions must be answered by Nigeria primarily. I've said not once, number, that the day Nigeria wakes up, that is the day Africa wakes up. You know, a friend of mine once told me, if you go anywhere in the world and you do not find a Nigerian, run out of that place. Stood up, that country was stabilized. When Nigeria did not do as well as she should have done in the Sahel, the problem is not stabilized. The question is, why is Nigeria a reluctant leader? Nigeria should be the leader economically. You know, when Nigerians say, and they debate with South Africa, and sometimes with Egypt, which is the biggest of the economies, I laugh. I laugh because the economies that they are talking about using the unreliable GDP, but we must use it, is that Nigeria is 500 billion USD GDP with a population of over 200 million. Singapore, which is smaller than Lagos, with a population of 6 million, has a GDP of 564 billion. So the debate between Nigeria and Egypt and South Africa is a debate between two dwarfs as to which one is the taller of them. Even if one is taller than the other, they are still dwarfs. The day that I will celebrate Nigeria is the day Nigeria tells me we are 2 trillion economy. And Nigeria can achieve it. And Nigeria must achieve it. What from today on, Nigeria is going to provide leadership. That she's going to provide leadership in the economic arena. That we are going to hear more Nigerians talk about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. That we are going to hear Nigerians talking about the diversification of the economy. That we are going to hear Nigeria talk about agriculture. That we are going to hear Nigeria saying that we are no longer going to import our chicken from Brazil. That we are no longer going to import our rice from Pakistan. That we are no longer going to have on our tables anything called English tea. That we are no longer going to have Nescafe on our table. That we are no longer going to import palm oil from Malaysia. That we are going to diversify our economy. That we are going to revive our leather industry. That we are going to revive our industry so that we can create jobs here. That Nigeria is going to be open space for the rest of Africa. Checkers go out there and move and shake the political leadership so that they are able to do that which is good and right. You have the ability, because if you don't do it, history will judge you harshly. Lastly, I want to conclude with these words of James M. Kwejiragri of Ghana, who said that we are eagles, but we have been fed on chicken feed for too long. Let us today abandon chicken feed. Let us become eagles that we may fly. We are
and shakers that have refused to be shaken and to be moved will finally get stirred up, and you would all rise and say never again. But we have the resilience to take it in and to domesticate what we have taken in and then to begin to follow through. Lumumba. Well, you know where you come from. You say Hakuna Matata. But there is Matata here. That's what you just said. Matata meaning Akwe Matata. There's trouble. And it's time to reflect on what he has said. We have very distinguished gentlemen, experts in their own rights. We have 3 distinguished discussants who would have been treated to another session with Professor Bolaji Akinyemi. He has asked me to convey his apologies that he's not able to be with us, but he's following all that we are doing, and at the appropriate time, we'll get the right responses from him. On your behalf, therefore, let me welcome first His Excellency Babatunde Raji Fashola. You know him. This is an esteemed Nigerian. He is a mover and a shaker. He has had everything that qualifies him to be exactly what Lumumba has described, a senior advocate of Nigeria, a former minister of the Federal Republic. Now, by today's standards, he would have been more than a coordinating minister, because you all remember how many portfolios he had. And most of all, a former governor of this state, the foremost state in Nigeria and in Africa, Lagos State. Your Excellency, the other day, we were treated to why Lagos is #1. Not only in Africa, but also in the global south. And I know that the geopolitical dimensions of what Lumumba has presented here would be Lagos as the beginning. So let me invite our first discussant, and I'm coming to you now. We'll give each discussant 10 minutes. I know that you have prepared.
The world that we now live in, a globalized world, where no nation is an island anymore. But in starting from the end, you alluded, I think, twice to whether we were cursed or whether we were bewitched. Those thoughts have crossed many minds, mine included, but I don't believe in witchery or sorcery. I believe that we can achieve everything we set our minds to. And I think the first resolution I want to propose here is whether we can agree on what the Nigerian dream looks like. Can we agree? What is the Nigerian dream and what does it look like? And perhaps from there, if we have a measure of what the dream looks like, we can have an agreement on what success will look like. So that when we get to the destination of success, we can really say and thump our chest that we have hit here. Of course, success is not static, so we can redefine and set new rules. But those are important resolutions I want us to ponder about whether we can reach. Of course, the topic itself and the theme calls upon us as the leader of this continent to rise. And when Nigeria was building the Lagos-Badagry Expressway, we were contributing our border share of the Lagos-Dakar Highway. And when we were building the bridge connecting us to Cameroon from Cross River, from Fung, we were actually contributing a share to the Lagos-Mombasa Highway, which is the east-west road of the African continent, if you like. When Nigeria decided to embark on the Kano to Maradi rail line project, they were doing nothing different. They were standing up to be counted for their leadership responsibility. Of course, not not a few of us raise questions, then why are you spending money in another part of the world outside your border? And I think the raison d'etre has somewhat been provided in prompt speech. But I think that those challenges themselves raise enormous opportunities, and I say the world has changed in a way that the generation that has the physical energy to do this work must understand that, as Paul said, instead of lamenting, is to find the opportunities within the definition of what the Nigerian dream looks like, what success looks like, and what good leadership looks like. Because we have had all sorts of leaders, and we seem not to be satisfied with what we have had. And so can we define what the successful leader looks like? So that when we see him, we will recognize him, we will cooperate around him, so that we will not end up in those afterthoughts saying, with due respect to the great men and women who said words to this effect like the best president we never had. So I think it is important to then have resolutions around these very seemingly simple but profound ideas. What is our gold standard for good leadership? What is our definition of success? What is the Nigerian dream? And so I think
topical subject that we have brought to the front bar. It's very, very serious one. It's one that we should approach with soberness, with reflection, looking backwards, foraying into the future. I want to appreciate my brother, the former governor of Lagos State, for the summary. What has done? Let me modify. Let me edit it. What do we as a nation? What is our vision? What is our mission? How do we want to get there? Professor Lumumba, God bless you. You have a good soul. You are a Christ to the black man and to the black race. Over and over. Nigeria has been depicted as the whipping boy of the black race, as the one to be held responsible for either success or failure of the black race, for our past, for our present, and for our future. That is good. And that reminds me of what that citizen of the world said about Nigeria in 2007. And please, Professor Lumumba, when I asked for a copy of your speech, of your lecture, I was told that we talk as a spirit directs. So I also made presentation as a spirit directs. My letter said about Nigeria in 2007. Just the way you have spoken this afternoon, and the way you have spoken, at least in the past three presentations of yours, about Nigeria. You know, I'm not very happy with Nigeria. I've made that very clear on many occasions. Yes, Nigeria stood by us than any other nation. But you let yourself down, and Africa, the black race, very badly. Your leaders have no respect for their people. They believe they have their personal interests and the interests of the people. They take people's resources and in turn to come to personal wealth. There is a level of poverty in Nigeria that will be unacceptable. I cannot understand why Nigerians are not more angry than they are. What do young Nigerians think about our leaders and their country? Do you teach them history? Do you have lessons on how to pass leaders stood by us and gave us large amounts of money? No constitution is perfect anyway. But they say to have a constitution. Appreciating what they suffered under the colonial masters. That constitution has worked as wages for so many years. Nigeria today, we do not have a constitution that will take us to the Kenya of our
doing. We are passion. It's a question of us coming to sit down and listen together. God himself did not say, come, let us listen together. A concern of a country is always negotiated. You come together, you appreciate yourselves. How do we live together? Is it parliamentary we want? Is it this presidential? And thereafter, we say, this is the way we have to manage ourselves. Nigeria, unity that must be in diversity, not diversity in disunity. It cannot be the other way around. I'm looking at it now from the jurisprudential angle. That's another angle, but then they are giving me 10 minutes. I don't know whether I'm not sure the 10 minutes. I don't know. I want to plead on this occasion too that, Professor, please help us appeal to our African countries. If you say someone is an elder, in this part of the country we respect elders, respect Nigeria, respect our feelings, respect also that we are human beings. In Ghana, we are being chased, we are being abused here and there. In South Africa, we are being rejected. And we are talking about playing the role of the big man. How do we play that role? If I come to Kenya, I come here. In South Africa, if you go to South Africa, you invest there. You cannot take a dime out. That's not fair to other African countries. That's not fair to the big brother. You see, there is a point in Mr. Look at us in Africa. When we concentrate on Nigeria, we are not saying anything about other African nations. Look at our neighbors over here in the Sahel region. Look at the problem they are giving us in Nigeria. Just 3 or 2 days ago, they said they have DAPA, that is, they have left the International Court of Justice, they have formed their own union. They might be right, they might be wrong. Look at what is happening in Sudan. Not Africa's making. Look at what is happening even in your Kenya. Is it Nigeria's making? So let everybody also take care of his own apartment, of his own corridor, of his own access. My dear Professor, my dear Doctor, I appreciate you. Thank you because, in court I will ask for 2 minutes more, but then let me know. Thank you, God bless.
Thank you very much.
The picking of the black race. And we've proved that time and time and time again. When I think of the liberation of Southern Africa, particularly Namibia, Angola, Mozambique, South Africa, and the commitment that Nigeria made and the efforts Nigeria gave and the total involvement in ensuring that if any one African is in bondage, us all are in bondage. We stood up for our brethren. Rather unfortunately, the leaders of those countries that we helped to liberate either did not school their people in what Nigeria has done. Therefore, what the point we must make over and over again is this: Nigeria cannot run as a unitary state. Our founding fathers, in their wisdom, created 3 regions in the first instance and the 4th later. They were not stupid. They understood that unity is, like our government says, in diversity. Therefore, we must return to the proper people's constitution. I'm a military general, for God's sake. We were the ones that turned the thing over. All right? But I must say here that whatever policies we put in place, we did believe it was best for the country. But time have shown that it isn't the best. Therefore, this country calls for a change. That change must come.
Professor Ali Mazrui wrote a paper which I commend. He said, If African politics is ethnic prone, can we have constitutions that are ethnic proof? And the essence of that paper was to redefine governance. And Ali Mazrui was coming from the standpoint of a statement that had been made a little earlier by the African-American John Henry Clark.
Not like a youth. And as such, we are talking about the situation we find ourselves today. Are we getting it right? Are we playing our role as giant of Africa and the hope of the Black World? What future do we have? In other words, considering the dreams of the founders of this club and its membership, eminent Nigerians who are leaders in their favorite field, it is fit and proper now to examine the question by reflecting on the question that you raised, Nigeria and the African reawakening, the giant that must not sleep. And this is the topic of our discussion today. I know you said it's a lecture, but I think it's a discussion, an intellectual exercise that should not be student-teacher affair, but a reflection about Nigeria and our collective being. So I think that Nigeria stands tall, Africa's most populous nation with over 220 million people, a demographic dividend that is fueling growth. Of this figure, I believe is 60% are believed to be young and in their productive age. And we've listened to our former Foreign Minister, General Nwachukwu, about the roles that our country has played. And we must be proud of it. In South Africa, I remember as a young student in secondary school, Oliver Baptist School, they took us out of our rooms. And we have people from South Africa as students. And they were living better than us, even from Zimbabwe. So we've done a lot of great things for Africa. And it is sad that we are now being treated somehow this way. But that's the African way. So let's put things in perspective. We've said that of 10 black people in the world, 4 will be Nigerian. So Nigeria is an important country. I have no doubt that we will make it. So, sir, it might also not be that intelligent people that also believe that constitution is not a problem. Intelligent people. Lee Kuan Yew said, sir, you will recall, he said that they came to Nigeria to beg for money. He was asking, how is Olusegun Obasanjo? We said he's there. And he said that the mistake you made was when Nigeria got independence, you have 3 leaders. You either remain as a country or you go your separate ways. He said at independence, you cannot have 3 leaders. You can't have Awolowo, you can't have Tafawa Balewa. He said, no, you must have 1 leader. And that is where you missed it. And that is what we see today. That is what we see today. Today, sir, one of the biggest problems in our country is ethnicity and probably religion. That is it. You do something. The biggest challenge for us in Africa or West Africa, economic and physical planning. If you cannot plan your physical space, you can't prosper. We've seen it. Let's go everywhere in the world. It's simple. But you really can't do things without us exercising everything in our country today. How is it that in the year of the Lord 2025, you will build a building without a permit? Are you stupid? In 2025. And then we don't talk. So those are the problems. In terms of money, the budget of Nigeria, federal government, is 54 trillion. And that's the biggest we've seen in a long time. These shakers and movers that are not necessarily must talk. People that know them. So people in this room must talk about this country. So the problem is we cannot allow people that don't know to be the mouthpiece of our country. So for Lagos State, our Lagos, we epitomizes entrepreneurial dynamism, a commercial upbeat driving Africa's economic pulse. It is working towards becoming African model megacity, one that is safe and secure, functional and productive. It has the ambition of becoming a global economic and financial hub in which businesses thrive with high returns on investment. We're on the way to achieving this. We've just been named the second largest city economy in Africa with gross domestic product of $259 billion based on the purchasing power parity after Cairo in Egypt. So our GDP is contributing about 20% to Nigerian GDP, and of course 25% of our country's non-oil GDP. So Lagos is important to our country. In other words, with these impressive figures from Lagos alone, there is no doubt that this giant will wake up soon if we keep at it. A country's strength is not only in its military might, nor is it only in its natural resources, definitely not in the number of friends it can call on the day of adversity. No, it is also about its people. What I'm saying, distinguished fathers, mothers, ladies and gentlemen, many of our compatriots have made their marks in their chosen field. We've listened to Professor Maluma mentioning Professor Wole Soyinka, who is Africa's Nobel Prize winner in literature. We've listened to Chinua Achebe, and so many. So today, Nigerians stand tall in terms of intellectual products. In finance, we've seen leaders from different atmosphere, young people. We've seen many new tech startups. Today, Lagos is now the tech startup of Africa. We've defeated Johannesburg. We've gone far further than Nairobi. So things are happening.
That we can give that award to, because we need to give someone first, which is the President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And I want to invite Mr. Deputy Governor to collect this award on behalf .
We are the future. We are the truth.
The Island Club Award of Highest Honor, Supreme Commander of the Order of the Peacock, SCOP, to His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, SCOP. Our discussant, Professor Patrick Otieno Lumumba, for honoring our invitation to attend this program. May I invite the Chairman Board of Trustees of the Island Club to help us present this award to Professor Lumumba.
We are the nation. We are part of this. Whoa. Carry the song, carry the sound. The future is here.
Prof, we want to really we want to appreciate you for the so well delivered, and we do welcome you. And on behalf of our chairman, the generality of members of the Island Club, we want to present you with this token.
Our panel, may I invite the Deputy Governor to help us with this award. And this is to the former Executive Governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babatunde Raji Fashola.
Your Excellency, in recognition and appreciation of your contribution, incisive insights, and patriotic engagement, as a special guest today, the Island Club, that prestigious club, present this award to you. Congratulations.
To Chief Wole Olanipekun to present this award, may I invite His Royal Majesty Oba Saka Adelola Matemilola, the Olowu of Owu, to help us with this presentation. God bless you.
It's my honor and pleasure, on behalf of Adam Club, to present to you Chief Wole Oladipeko, CFR, SN, in recognition and appreciation of your contributions, incisive insights, and patriotic engagement as a special guest and panel discussant at today's
Chief Sir Michael Olumiwa Falomo to help us with this presentation.
We have just begun. When we have nowhere else to run to, we have nowhere else to go. So get up.
Prof, it's always a pleasure to see you. And thank you for being there every now and again. You always perform brilliantly. And thanks for doing just that today. God bless you. So on behalf of the chairman and the management committee of Island Club, I present you with this plaque of honor to thank you for a brilliant performance as usual.
And analogy. What we have suffered from can be summarized in one sentence: that we have had a process of incomplete state building across Africa. And in order for us to understand that, I want to suggest to us that we've had two phases of our liberation and coming of age. The first was the first independence movement. Now, that was when we all looked forward to independence from colonization, not colonialism. But think of where we were coming from, because on at least 4 occasions, Professor Lumumba talked about Nigeria regaining its independence. Now, historically, that cannot be correct, because Nigeria is a very recent creation, 65 years and so on, but Nigeria is not an organic creation. If you take the map of Africa on the eve of 1884, 1885 in Berlin, and you take the map of Africa today, you would not recognize or identify Nigeria anywhere. There was no country called Nigeria. So to that extent, Nigeria is a very recent creation. And I want to suggest to you that the precepts that guided Nigeria's creation were not precepts that were defined or determined by the Africans themselves. They were rather imposed. And so what we've been doing since we were formed as countries is playing catch up, wanting to live up to the expectations of the states that have been formed through colonization. That's a very difficult process. Now, that's the first independence movement. There were expectations of rising expectation, of revolution rather, of rising expectations that visited us at independence, followed very quickly by a revolution of rising frustrations, because the hopes, the expectations of independence were now a bridge too far. And so, historically, it became imperative for us to move to what has been described as the second independence movement. That's where we are. The second independence movement is devoted to rebuilding and because now it is a state that has to deal with human beings, not simply getting political independence. Now, that framework is very important because the unraveling that we find across Africa is unraveling that is saying the state that we inherited is not the kind of state that we think is appropriate for us. And that's why all of these things are continuing, but in the process, we are all rebuilding a state that lawyers describe as autochthonous, the kind of state that can patently become our own states, organic states, But we must all be part of that renegotiation and rebargaining. So there's hope, and I think that that is the point.